I wanted to talk a little bit about the construct of time. This was a key finding across all participants. The idea that time is important to consider and necessary in order to be intentional about one's wellness. It showed up in three specific ways for our group. First, in the definition of a day. Second, complicating this idea of being productive. And third, scheduling self-care. So the definition of the day was a key finding because all of the interventions are related to daily activities. And the reflections are daily reflections. And so the definition of a day became a key question that every person tussled around with a little bit. Some folks really took the day and defined it by their workday, 9 to 5, which also meant that they were often doing their daily reflections before leaving the office. Others took the definition of the day to be the moment they woke up until the moment they went to bed and were literally filling out the reflections on their mobile device as they were getting ready for bed. Others were a bit more fluid and used the 24-hour time period to define their day. They also did not feel restricted to complete reflections at the end of the day and maybe would complete the reflections the morning after, letting the full day set in, letting sleep set in, and then allowing the start of their day to be reflective of the previous day. I think this is important because in many ways this can influence how we feel productive. This was a really interesting finding in the sense that on the daily reflections, participants are asked to reflect on their goals and whether or not they felt as if they'd been successful in completing their goals. And this notion of productivity became increasingly important. Some participants reported not feeling very productive because maybe they thought they had tackled too much in their day. They didn't check off as many things on their to-do list. Some folks thought that they were very productive and then began to question whether or not they set big enough goals for their day or were setting important enough goals. And the other piece around being productive was related to the type of work that sometimes would take them away from their to-do list. So there were times where productivity could easily be determined based on finishing a report, balancing a budget, facilitating a workshop. And those days, professionals really left feeling pretty successful. On the days when they were often called to be with students, to hear students' experiences around racial microaggressions in the classroom or other challenges that they're experiencing based on the political environment, these were days that student affairs professionals often left feeling more fatigued and even more so unproductive because this work isn't valued in the same way as facilitating a workshop or developing a curriculum or balancing a budget. And so this interesting conundrum occurs for these professionals who feel as if those are the days when they are most present for their students and they feel that's an important component of their job, yet they simultaneously leave their office feeling pretty unproductive and therefore feeling more fatigued that day because they don't have anything to physically or tangibly show for the energy that they have expended. So this is something that is important for us to be thoughtful of in the ways in which our emotional labor is valued differentially compared to very administrative, normative tasks. And the last piece around the construct of time is focused around scheduling self-care. Interestingly enough, there is a large conversation around self-care in our field, and yet the ability to actually access it seems pretty disproportionate. Folks feel as if there is a strong need to schedule self-care, but they don't always have access to that. And what I think is a key finding related to this is the wellness interventions that we asked participants to add to their day all take up about 1 hour a day. We asked folks to do 30 minutes of movement, and it didn't have to be consecutive 30 minutes, just 30 minutes total throughout the day. They get to choose the movement that they want, one that they enjoy, and 30 minutes was it. I asked folks to do 10 minutes of personal development, and that could be a series of things. That could be listening to a podcast, reading a book, reading an article, checking in with a social community, church community. So this 10 minutes of personal development, also 10 minutes is what we asked folks to do and to give to themselves every single day. And then we asked folks to complete a daily reflection, which on average took about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. And so if you add those 3 interventions up and the time it takes to do that, it's about an hour at most a day. And yet there were professionals who did not feel as if they could find the time to complete all of those tasks every day. Those who were successful were the ones who scheduled it very specifically, as if it were an appointment on their calendar, or they signed up for a class that they knew they would go to at their fitness center or gym, or they set an alarm for their personal development. These were the folks who were most successful and saw the greatest amount of change over time. But I don't discount the idea that accessing the opportunity to implement these wellness interventions felt challenging. And it felt challenging because of the amount of time that it takes to do this, but also the amount of time it means that they might be pulled away from more work or something more productive. So these are the 3 ways in which the construct of time showed up. It's important for us to be thoughtful of this because we have to be thoughtful of the ways in which our occupational and organizational environments allow us to access holistic wellness initiatives or interventions for ourselves. And that's an individual decision for folks to make, but there are ways in which we can make these options and opportunities accessible to everyone. And finally, we didn't think this would do anyone any good if we didn't provide you with strategies for coping with and combating social justice fatigue in your own life. I hope you'll check out our Acts of Wellness series, where each participant highlights a little bit about themselves, key learnings they take away from participating in the 30-day Wellness for Social Justice program, and learnings that they hope others will consider.